They would never tell you this. In fact, they've spent their entire life making sure no one ever sees it. But beneath all the silence, the withdrawal, the shutting down and pushing you away, there is a truth that would shake them to their core if it were ever exposed. And it's this: the avoidant needs you far more desperately than you could ever imagine. Now, I know how backwards that sounds, because when you're on the receiving end of their cold stares, their clipped responses, their sudden disappearances, it feels like you're the one who's clinging, while they are the ones standing tall in their independence. It feels like you're the one fighting for closeness, while they seem so at peace in their distance. But that's the lie their defense system has crafted for decades. Their distance isn't freedom, it's camouflage. Think about it. If someone were truly free, if someone were truly content in their solitude, they wouldn't have to armor themselves so heavily against closeness. They wouldn't flinch when you draw near. They wouldn't create excuses, distractions, or walls every time love begins to flow toward them. What they're protecting isn't their independence. It's the very thing they fear they cannot survive losing. You. Your presence, your warmth, your willingness to see them, that is oxygen to someone who lives in an internal desert. The avoidant isn't immune to love. They are starving for it. But their survival strategy has convinced them that the only way to keep you is to push you away. That's the twisted paradox of this dynamic. The more they need you, the more they retreat. The more they long for closeness, the more they punish you for offering it. And if you've ever sat in the middle of that storm, you know the madness it creates. You start questioning your own worth. You ask yourself, am I too much? Am I demanding too much? But the truth is, their silence is not a mirror of your value. It's a mirror of their terror. Because to the avoidant, needing you feels like weakness. Loving you feels like exposure. Depending on you feels like danger. And yet, at the very same time, they need you desperately. This is the hidden war no one tells you about. The war between their longing and their fear, between their hunger for connection and their panic at being seen. And the mistake so many of us make is believing that their retreat means they don't care. No, their retreat means they care so much they can't bear the vulnerability of letting it be known. And that's where everything begins to shift when you realize that their distance isn't proof of strength, it's proof of dependency they can't name out loud. Here's the first thing you need to see with crystal clarity. The avoidance behavior is not proof of indifference. It is proof of panic, and panic always reveals need. Have you ever noticed how quickly an avoidant partner changes when you start pulling back? Maybe you finally get tired of chasing. You stop texting first. You let silence stretch out. You detach your energy just a little. And suddenly, there they are, a breadcrumb message, a vague check-in, an out-of-nowhere invitation that feels like it came from nowhere. Why? Because your withdrawal threatens the very lifeline they've been disguising all along. To them, your presence is like gravity. You anchor them without them ever admitting it. When you pull away, their entire nervous system jolts awake, like a child realizing the parent has left the room. And this is where the contradiction slices deepest. The very person who insists they don't need anyone crumbles when they sense you might actually believe them. This is why they're so erratic. One moment warm, the next cold. One moment pulling you close, the next punishing you for being too near. Their heart is caught in a tug of war between desperation and dread. And the part they show you, the shutdown, the distance, the icy control, that's just the dread. The desperation is buried under layers of denial, only leaking out in those small, confusing moments when they reach back just enough to stop you from leaving. Let me put it this way. If they truly didn't need you, they would let you walk. They wouldn't come searching after weeks of silence. They wouldn't leave the door cracked with half answers and maybes. They wouldn't hover around your life keeping tabs from the shadows. Their inconsistency is not about you being unworthy. It's about you being essential. And here's the dangerous part. When you don't know this, you start giving more than you should. You interpret their silence as an invitation to prove yourself. You think if you can just love harder, they'll finally feel safe enough to let their guard down. But that only strengthens their illusion of control, because the avoidance entire system is built on one thing: never letting you know how badly they need what you give. The power begins to shift when you see through the disguise, when you stop mistaking their armor for strength and start recognizing it as fear. Because when you hold that awareness, you no longer chase their scraps. You realize, I am not the desperate one here. They are. And that realization cracks open everything. Because once you see who is truly starving, you stop feeding the illusion that you are the weaker one in this bond. Silence. It's their favorite weapon. And for so long, you may have mistaken it for strength. You may have told yourself, they're just independent. They're just private. They just need space. But what if I told you that silence in the hands of an avoidant is not strength at all? It's survival. Think about how silence works in this dynamic. You pour your heart out and they give you nothing back. You ask where the relationship is going and they go mute. You share a vulnerable truth and they vanish for hours, days, sometimes weeks. That silence feels like power, doesn't it? Like they've got the upper hand while you're left twisting in the wind. But underneath, silence is actually a mask, because words would reveal too much. If they spoke, they might admit how deeply you affect them. If they admitted the truth, they'd have to acknowledge how much they actually rely on your love, your stability, your presence. And that terrifies them. Because for the avoidant, needing someone is the ultimate danger. Silence then becomes a shield, a way to keep you guessing, keep you doubting, keep you working for scraps, while they never expose just how tethered they are to your energy. But here's the paradox. Silence isn't absence. It's communication. It tells you exactly how desperate they are to maintain control over their dependency. It says, I can't let you see me. I can't let you know I need you more than I can handle. Their retreat is not proof of a lack of care. It's proof of an inner war they can't name. And if you've ever sat awake at night replaying their silence, trying to decode it, wondering what you did wrong, let me tell you the truth that will free you. Their silence speaks volumes about them, not about you. It is not mystery. It is not wisdom. It is fear, plain and simple. And here's where you begin to take your power back, by refusing to mistake silence for superiority. When you stop chasing, stop decoding, stop twisting yourself into knots trying to extract meaning from their absence, you reclaim the dignity they tried to strip away. Because suddenly, silence loses its grip. It's no longer proof that you're unworthy. It's proof that they are terrified of how much they actually depend on you. That shift in perception is everything. Because once you see that, you stop bleeding out your energy trying to fill the void they create. You recognize that void for what it is, a desperate attempt to hide their own dependency. And you stop carrying the weight of their silence as if it were your burden to fix. If this is landing for you, subscribe. We're just getting started. Because once you truly understand silence for what it is, you begin to see the next layer, the subtle ways an avoidant builds a world designed to disguise their need, all while tethering themselves more deeply to you. Have you noticed how carefully the avoidant constructs their world? On the surface, it looks like independence. They've got their hobbies, their work, their routines. They might even tell you almost defensively, I don't really need anyone. And if you're not looking closely, you might believe it. You might even envy it. This appearance of being untethered, self-sufficient, unshakable. But let me ask you something. If they were truly independent, why do they orbit you so relentlessly? Why do they keep one eye on your energy even when they're pulling away? Why do they send the vague just checking in text after disappearing, or scroll your socials in silence, or hover close enough to feel your presence without fully stepping in? That's not independence. That's dependency in disguise. Here's the truth. Most people never see. The avoidant constructs an illusion of autonomy, but beneath it, they are quietly, desperately calibrated to you. Your love, your validation, your steady presence, it becomes the fuel they run on even as they pretend to reject it. Their entire sense of self is maintained by holding you at arm's length, not by standing completely alone. And isn't that wild? The very person who criticizes you for needing too much is often the one who cannot function without the silent assurance that you are still there, waiting, orbiting, available. Their illusion of independence only works if you're unconsciously feeding it. And once you see that, the spell begins to break. Let me paint it like this. Imagine a child playing hide and seek. They cover their eyes with their hands and believe for a moment that no one can see them. But the truth is, they're standing right there in the open. That's the avoidance game. They hide behind their walls, their silence, their routines, and they convince themselves they're untouchable, but they're not. Their whole identity in the relationship hinges on the hope that you'll keep seeing them, even when they refuse to look at you. And this is why the illusion can feel so intoxicating. You start believing that you are the one chasing, that you are the one desperate to hold on. But underneath, it's them. They need you there, even if they can't admit it, even if they push you away. Because the moment you're truly gone, the scaffolding collapses. Their entire illusion shatters. Here's the dangerous part, though. If you don't catch this illusion, you'll keep pouring into it. You'll keep giving and giving, trying to prove that you're enough to finally break through their walls. But the truth is, they already depend on you far more than you depend on them. They just hide it better. And once you know this, you begin to move differently. You stop seeing their walls as evidence of strength and start recognizing them as flimsy barriers guarding a deep, unspoken hunger. You realize their independence is not real, it's staged. And the longer you keep believing the performance, the longer you keep giving them a power they don't truly have. And here's the irony. The very moment you stop feeding that illusion is the moment the avoidant starts to feel the ground beneath them shake. Because their secret has always been this. They don't know who they are without you. Have you ever wondered why? Just when things start to feel good, safe, close, an avoidant suddenly pulls away, picks a fight, or disappears. It feels so cruel, doesn't it? Like you were finally breaking through, finally building something real, and then bam, they sabotage it. Here's the part no one tells you, that sabotage is not about you. It's not because the intimacy wasn't working or because you weren't enough. It's because intimacy terrifies the avoidant, not because they don't want it, but because they want it too much. See, when an avoidant feels themselves leaning in, when they catch themselves enjoying your closeness, your warmth, your availability, it triggers their deepest fear, dependency. To them, needing you feels like losing themselves. It feels dangerous, suffocating, almost unbearable. So what do? They sabotage, they withdraw, they create distance, arguments, distractions, anything to convince themselves they're not as tethered to you as they feel. But here's the paradox. The very act of sabotage reveals the depth of their need. Think about it. If you didn't matter, why would they panic when intimacy grows? If they weren't deeply affected, why would closeness feel so overwhelming that they have to destroy it just to breathe again? That panic isn't about rejection, it's about exposure. Because in those moments, their dependency is showing. And here's what's really tragic. Their sabotage is not just hurting you, it's hurting them. Every time they run from love, they run from the very thing they crave. Every time they push you away, they secretly ache for the safety they just shattered. And often they'll sit alone afterwards, conflicted, confused, missing you fiercely, while convincing themselves they don't need anyone. This is why the cycle is so exhausting. You feel the highs of closeness, then the whiplash of withdrawal. And if you don't understand what's really happening, you'll start blaming yourself. You'll think you said the wrong thing, asked for too much, leaned in too far. But the truth is their sabotage is about their inner war, not about your worth. And once you see that, everything shifts. You stop personalizing their pullbacks. You stop twisting yourself into knots trying to fix what you never broke. You begin to understand that their sabotage is a symptom of dependency they can't tolerate, not proof that you're unlovable. And here's the real power move. When you stop chasing after their sabotage, when you let them sit in the emptiness they've created, you force them to face the truth they've been running from, that they do need you, that they are affected, that their walls don't protect them from love, they only suffocate it. This is how the balance of power begins to turn. Because once you stop playing the role they expect, the fixer, the pursuer, the one who proves your worth, the avoidant is left with their own sabotage, their own dependency, their own fear. And that is the very moment they begin to crack. Here's something you may have noticed. After an avoidant sabotages, after they create distance, after they leave you sitting in confusion, they often circle back. Maybe it's a casual text. Maybe it's a vague check-in. Maybe it's some small gesture that pulls you right back into their orbit. And in that moment, it feels like hope, doesn't it? Like maybe they've realized what they lost. Like maybe the sabotage was just a fluke and now you're back on track. But let's pause here, because this isn't reconciliation. This is power reclamation. See, after the avoidant withdraws, there's a panic that sets in. It might not show on the surface, but internally, they feel the emptiness. They miss the energy you were providing, the emotional anchor you gave them, the silent assurance that they mattered. But instead of admitting that dependency, they re-enter the dynamic in a way that allows them to feel back in control. That's why the text is vague, why the reach out is minimal, why the breadcrumb is just enough to hook you but not enough to heal you. It's their way of testing. Are you still there? Do I still have access to you? Can I still count on your energy without surrendering mine? It's not love they're leading with, it's fear management. Because to an avoidant, the greatest terror is losing control of their dependency. So they pull you back, not to rebuild intimacy, but to steady themselves. And here's the trap. If you rush in, if you overgive, if you take breadcrumbs as a banquet, you reinforce the cycle. You teach them that they can sabotage and still return without consequence. You teach them that your heart will always be waiting in the same place they left it. And in that moment, without meaning to, you hand the power right back to them. But here's where everything changes when you stop playing into that pattern, when you no longer rush to fill the silence, when you no longer accept crumbs as proof of connection, when you stand in the dignity of your own worth and let them feel the full weight of the space they created. That's when the cycle begins to break. Because suddenly, their power move no longer works. The vague text doesn't pull you in. The casual check-in doesn't reset the dynamic. They are left face to face with a truth they've been running from. They can't count on your energy unless they show up with more than scraps. And that's when dependency shifts from a secret they can hide behind to a reality they have to confront. Because for the first time, they feel the risk of losing you. Not because you begged, not because you proved yourself, but because you stood still, powerful, unwilling to play their game. That's the moment everything tilts. Because now the avoidant has to decide, cling to their sabotage, or step into a level of vulnerability they've avoided their entire life. and that decision isn't yours to make, it's theirs. But here's the freedom. You no longer live at the mercy of their cycle. You no longer bleed out energy trying to manage their sabotage. You reclaim the one thing they've been trying to strip away all along, your power to choose. Here's the deepest truth of all. Avoidants are never truly independent. They only perform independence. They posture, they distance, they withhold. But at their core, they are tethered to the very people they claim not to need. Think about it. If they were truly independent, they wouldn't need to run every time they felt close. They wouldn't need to silence you, breadcrumb you, sabotage the bond. They wouldn't need to keep you orbiting their world. True independence doesn't require control over someone else's energy, but avoidance always does. What does this mean for you? It means that the power you thought they had, the power to define your worth, to keep you chasing, to leave you powerless, was never real. It was borrowed. Borrowed from your willingness to believe in their illusion. Borrowed from your energy, your giving, your fear of losing them. Once you see this clearly, the spell breaks. You stop confusing distance for dominance. You stop mistaking silence for strength. You stop interpreting sabotage as rejection. You begin to see their behavior for what it is, dependency wrapped in fear. And when you stand in that clarity, something inside of you shifts forever. Because you realize you were never the powerless one. You were the anchor. You were the source of stability. You were the one who held more power than you knew. And the very moment you reclaim that truth, their grip on you dissolves. Here's the liberation. You no longer need to convince, prove, or beg. You no longer need to contort yourself to fit their comfort zone. You no longer bleed out your energy trying to solve a puzzle that was never yours to solve. You rise. You breathe. You remember who you are outside of their walls. And that is when you step into a power they can't touch. Because the avoidance secret dependency is not your burden, it's their awakening to face, if they choose. Your work is to stop carrying what was never yours, to stop mistaking their fear for your flaw, and to stand tall in the truth of your own worth. So hear me when I say this. The avoidant is not the strong one in this story. You are. You are the steady one. You are the rooted one. You are the force they orbit, even as they pretend not to need you. And the moment you truly know this, you are free. Because their illusion of independence was never power. Your clarity always was. So love, here's where we land. The avoidant's secret dependency is not your curse to carry. It's their hidden struggle, their silent battle, their unspoken truth. And when you peel back the illusion, when you stop seeing their distance as dominance and their silence as strength, you reclaim yourself. Because here's the power you've been missing all along. You are not the needy one. You are not the powerless one. You are not the one begging for scraps. You are the anchor. You are the steady force. You are the one who brings the safety they don't know how to hold. And once you see that, everything changes. The chasing stops. The proving stops. The cycle breaks. And suddenly, you're no longer the one fighting to be chosen. You're the one choosing. Choosing your peace. Choosing your worth. Choosing a love that flows instead of hides. And that, my dear, is the very place where freedom lives. Because the truth is, you never needed their validation to be whole. You never needed their approval to be worthy. You only needed to remember who you are outside of their walls. So if this message has stirred something inside you, if you feel a spark of recognition or a whisper of freedom, hold on to it. Let it anchor you. Let it remind you that you are powerful, you are lovable, and you are free to choose relationships that honor your heart instead of suffocating it. And if you want to go deeper, if you want to keep peeling back these illusions and stepping into your feminine power, make sure you subscribe, because this journey isn't just about understanding the avoidant, it's about understanding you, reclaiming your energy, and finally stepping into the kind of love that feels like home. Remember this always. Their avoidance is not a reflection of your lack. It's a reflection of their fear. And you, my love, are so much bigger than their fear.